Hello, everybody. You are listening to Feed Your Mind. So today we will be discussing the Great Satellite Hoax and how scientists had mastered bouncing signals off of the dome firmament, which they like to consider the ionosphere, as we discussed in my previous video, The Height of the Dome Firmament, where we go into detail about the ionosphere.
It was essential for both defensive and offensive planning that experimental data be obtained on the effects of high-altitude nuclear bursts on radar performance. A third objective concerned communications blackout, that is, the loss of signals due to disturbances in the ionosphere caused by high-altitude detonations. The loss of signals due to disturbances in the ionosphere caused by high-altitude detonations. It was necessary to know the ensuing effects on military command and control systems which require long-range communications. Although radar on the Damp ship and Johnston Island showed no gross refractive effects from any of the bursts, preliminary results indicate a refractive jitter problem under certain conditions, involving a rapid fluctuation in the apparent angle of arrival of returning radar pulses. It was present on all events, but most pronounced on bluegill and kingfish.
And so this White Alice project was just before the Operation Fishbowl project. So in this White Alice project is where I believe they actually discovered the reflective properties of the dome and how they can use it for communication purposes. And so this White Alice project was located in Alaska. And to this day, you can visit the site and see evidence of these structures that scientists were using to communicate by bouncing signals off of the sky. And as we all know, the sky is not a solid object, so there's no way that they're bouncing signals off of the sky, no matter what they try to tell you about the ionosphere or whatever. They're not bouncing signals off of the sky. They're bouncing signals off of the reflective dome firmament. I believe the dome firmament to have electromagnetic properties. There could be some type of energy that's associated with this force field, in addition to just being a solid barrier structure.
The need for the test work carried on at Johnston and its far-flung array was compelling, for it stemmed from urgent Department of Defense operational needs requiring that high-altitude phenomena resulting from a nuclear burst be defined with simultaneous direct measurements on military operational equipment. For while America had been making rapid strides in other aspects of missile technology, its investigation of high-altitude nuclear detonation effects had lagged due to the 1958 test moratorium imposed shortly after the nation's first look at nuclear effects at high altitudes. From a ship in the South Atlantic, 3 small detonations, known as the Argus series, were launched and triggered aloft for the purpose of examining the Christophilus theory that a long-lived belt of trapped electrons could be artificially created by a very high-altitude nuclear explosion. Other effects on Argus, although measured, were not thoroughly documented. From hardtack's limited test experimentation, one lesson learned was that widely diverse quantitative effects were produced at different altitudes, including major electromagnetic disturbances, causing communications and radar blackout problems. Including major electromagnetic disturbances, causing communications and radar blackout problems. The nature of each effect could be learned only by actual testing. More than the information they furnished, these 1958 shots indicated how much more there was to learn about nuclear burst-created atmospheric ionization.
So this took place in the early 50s in Alaska, and the military was having problems communicating throughout the vast open areas of Alaska. The telephone communication systems at that time were limited to cables and wires, and I believe they also had limited signal technology. And so communication was a massive problem for the military to communicate. And so I believe behind the scenes, Russia and the U.S. during the Cold War were actually working on an agenda. And so as scientists were mastering bouncing the signals off of the dome, they noticed that the northern lights actually affected the communication and interfered with the signals. And so that's a pretty interesting piece of information, that the Aurora Borealis actually affects signals. Let me know what you all think about that in the comments section. And so the striking thing about this White Alice military base is that we must remember that this was before satellites existed. So to me, this White Alice military base is empirical evidence that satellite tech is actually signals being bounced off of the dome. This is very solid evidence that satellites do not exist. And so this White Alice base was even before the space race. It was before NASA. It was before even Operation Fishbowl, which I actually believe Operation Fishbowl was directly connected to this White Alice project because they're definitely practicing the same technologies that they were practicing during Operation Fishbowl. So I believe Operation Fishbowl was the finalization of whatever they had figured out in Alaska while they were doing this White Alice project. And so another striking thing about this White Alice project is that it appears there was cooperation between Russia and the US during this project. And so during this White Alice project, the Russians were able to launch Sputnik, which was actually the first satellite said to be launched. And so White Alice means the Alaska Integrated Communication Enterprise. And they were naming the technology tropospheric scattering. And it was named for over-the-horizon communication. I believe this White Alice technology is what led to cellular communication technology and GPS technology as well. They were able to send the signal up into the sky and then have the signal come back down to a location at a satellite base across the land. And so according to my research, it was around 1955 when they were first able to successfully communicate using this technology by bouncing signals off of the ionosphere, which is actually the dome firmament. The lowest point of this ionosphere is 31 miles up, but they say this ionosphere extends all the way up to 620 miles up, as we discussed in the previous video. And what they're able to do is bounce signals from dish to dish. They can bounce over mountains and rough terrain, and they were said to be able to reach distances as far as 200 miles apart. And what they noticed is these signals can support multiple phone calls at the same time. So there's no doubt about it that this is all what we consider to be satellite communication in this modern time. It's basically the same technology they're using today, but they're calling it satellite technology. And so this was a secure system where each signal could only be received by the precise reception destinations, and these signals could not be intercepted. And so after they mastered this technology is when satellite dishes started popping up all over the world. And so to this day, all satellite technology really is signal technology using this system where they're bouncing signals off the dome, and it's also cellular towers and land-based cable communication. What most people think are satellites is actually simply signals bouncing from cell tower to cell tower and from dish to dish, using the dome firmament to bounce the signals. So I will address GPS specifically in another video, so stay tuned for that. Click your notification bell so you don't miss it. And so there doesn't seem to be any empirical evidence that satellites exist. There doesn't seem to be any pictures of satellites floating around in the sky when you're seeing ISS video. There's no little shining beacons of light appearing to us in the sky. They're saying there's pieces of space junk and satellites and all types of stuff floating around in space, but we never see any shimmering lights or any evidence of any of that. Any alleged pictures of satellites are easily debunkable and cannot be verified as authentic. And so this White Alice project seems to definitely be solid empirical proof that satellite technology is not what you were told. And Alaska is also where they have that HARP system. And I believe the HARP system actually helps to charge up the dome firmament. And I believe chemtrails are also related to signal technology because there's metals in these chemtrails, barium and all types of stuff. So I believe the chemtrails are used to help charge up these signals as they're bouncing from dish to dish. And the only reason they're bouncing from dish to dish is because of the dome firmament. And so this White Alice project proves that satellites do not exist. And let me know what you think about all of this in the comments section. Join my Patreon page for as little as $1 to support this channel, and I'll send you some unreleased information about future videos by email for being a member. Pick up a Flat Earth t-shirt. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. This has been another episode of Feed Your Mind signing off.
Engineers have been able to take advantage of some very unique properties of the dome which covers the Earth. Transparent aluminum only exists in theory, but it is said to have unique properties. One of those properties was changing the incident angle of an electromagnetic wave from a normal reflected signal. Without getting technical, I will try to describe what I mean. When you shine a light on a window or shiny surface, the light reflects at the same angle that it arrives. In other words, a mirror placed at a 45-degree angle will bounce light in a manner that it will turn a 90-degree corner. Back during the late 50s and early 60s, scientists were probing the dome with stronger and shorter wavelength radio signals. When their technology improved, they found a strange phenomenon. When a radio signal hit the dome, it did not reflect off at the same incidence angle. The radio signal somehow excited the molecules in the dome in such a way that it appeared to retransmit the signal back at the same angle of the radio wave from the ground. This was a revolution for two different groups of people, and those at the top had a brainstorm. They had just discovered a way to simulate satellites to keep their illusion going in the face of better technology.